Welcome to Mpowered Living. I'm Ann Sheu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Mpowered Living, the podcast where we explore the habits and conversations that help us build more intentional, resilient lives. I'm your host, Ann Sheu, and today we're diving into what it really means to lead with love, strength, and humility. My guest today is Larry Hagner, the founder of Dad Edge, the host of a top-ranked podcast with over 1,400 episodes, and a coach to thousands of men looking to level up their marriages, their fatherhood, and their leadership. Larry's work centers on teaching skills men often were never taught: emotional intelligence, connection, and communication, all grounded in courage and community. In this episode, we talk about why men don't need to be perfect, but they do need to be intentional, the power of psychological safety in the home and how to create it, and how to build your circle of five and surround yourself with the right people. Let's dive in. Larry, I'm so excited to chat with you today. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I can't wait to have this conversation with you. Okay, so can you first share with our listeners what is Dad Edge and also the boardroom work that you're doing? Tell us about these projects, these amazing projects that you've got going on.
Well, thanks for asking. So the Dad Edge, I've been doing this work now for over 10 years. Actually, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary on April 15th. So 10 years of podcasting, I think almost 1,400 episodes. And yeah, I mean, what is Dad Edge? Dad Edge is an organization where common men can learn uncommon skills and live an uncommon life within their marriage, within their kids, within their business, within their physical body, and within their mental and emotional health. That's what Dad Edge is all about. So we basically teach all the skills that you never get to learn in high school about relationships, the relationship with yourself, the relationship with your wife, with your kids, and your business. And there are elements of skills that go along with each one of those categories that we're talking about, right? And if you really get to the heart and the mind of a man, like those topics, those four topics, those are very, very meaningful to us. But yet there really is no education around that unless you're a psychology major, then you kind of understand it to some degree. But what we're doing in Dad Edge is every man that has a seat at our table within our community, we have a group coaching program that we've done now for 9 years. We've helped over 5,000 men over the past 9 years. And basically any man that has a seat at our table will learn fundamental skills within those areas so they can go and elevate their life, their relationship with their spouse, their relationship with their kids, their business, their fitness, even their wealth. We talk a lot about wealth in that area as well. So in the boardroom, you asked about the boardroom, that is for our dad business owners. So we have two different programs. One's called the Alliance, that's more for our career guys. And we carved out the boardroom about 7 years ago because we realized that business owners needed just a little more, and their lives were a bit different, not better or worse, but just different. So we decided to meet those differences where they're at and help those men not only with marriage and parenting and their fitness and wealth, but also their business. And that's what we do in the boardroom.
What do you see is the biggest struggle for the men that are coming to work with you?
It's usually they're facing the biggest struggle before they get to us. And what I mean by that is the biggest struggle that I think men deal with is the perception of everything we just talked about. So I'll give you an example. Most men, I was included in this camp as well, that fatherhood and marriage, when I first got married and became a father, was insanely important to me. It was intimately important to me. To be quite honest, I was like, man, if there's one job or two, I guess two jobs, right? My wife and my kids, these are two roles that I play that I refuse to fail. I will not fail. I cannot fail, right? And I'm going to do the best I can, right? Because I love it and because I want to be good at it. And if you really think about that perspective, that is not a perspective that you are going to learn and execute very well. And I'll give you an example. I just started taking jujitsu about 6 months ago. I've never taken jujitsu. I've always been curious about jujitsu. I've always loved mixed martial arts. I've done other martial arts in the past. I've got about 15 years of experience in other martial arts, but not jujitsu. And just because I have a deep love and a passion for martial arts, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be a great jujitsu martial artist unless I go have a seat at that table, AKA the dojo, and decide to go in and learn and roll. Otherwise, it's going to be disastrous. Like if I go to a tournament and I'm like, I love martial arts and I just love competing, I think I'll do okay. I'm going to wing it. And then I go in and I just get reamed. And by the way, the past 6 months, I've gotten killed. Like I'm just like, I'm like, all right, I'm showing up to class. I'm going to get choked several times. I even had a conversation with my instructor because he saw one, like it was a couple weeks ago. He's like, I see you're kind of frustrated. I'm like, I am. Like, when the hell does this all come together? And he's like, give it about another 6 months. I promise, like things will start to come together. But for right now, you're in the heat of it, man. You're just getting your rear end handed to you all the time. I'm like, yeah, this sucks. But he's like, but it's totally normal. You're learning. I'm like, okay. So perspective, right? So anything that we do well in life, like I have a 4-year degree in sports medicine with a minor in nutrition. So I can literally tell you how to dial in your fitness. No problem. I can tell you exactly what to eat, exactly what to do, calories in, calories out, macros, micros, exercise, the whole 9 yards. I can tell you everything, but it's only because I dedicated 4 years of my life to learn that. Right. And then when I became a father for the very first time and got married, like they give you this baby and you're like, okay, now what? And they're like, well, yeah, now
Just
you
take it home.
go home.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, we've been doing this for centuries. You'll be fine. You go home with it. I'm like, I have no idea what to do. And so my perspective was, well, I guess I'm just going to be like everybody else and just wing it and figure it out because that's what we do. But we don't do that with college. We don't do that. You can't go be a police officer because you want to be. You can't even go be an electrician without being an apprentice and then going through education and then being a journeyman. And here's another example. I didn't even do really anything with my degree. I actually got into medical device sales. Once I got into medical device sales, when I got hired, I'm like, oh, when do I start? When do we go to the OR? They're like, we train you for 12 weeks before you even set foot into a hospital, more or less going to an OR. So I'm like, okay, yeah. So 3 months of training before we even got to speak to a surgeon. But when you get married and say, I do, best of luck. Best time of your whole life. So the perspective is this. Here's what I'll tell you. If a man is listening to this and he's like, man, my marriage isn't necessarily where I want it to be, or the connection with my kids isn't where I want it to be. My ask of you is, have you got it on the parenting or the marriage jujitsu mat and done some rolling? Have you done any learning? If the answer is no, well, join the club. You're just like everybody else. But also I challenge you with that perspective because anything you've ever done, you've learned how to do it well first, right? So I think that's the biggest gap. That is the biggest gap, is that perspective of men being like, well, I should know how to do this automatically. I should know how to be married. I should know how to be a dad. If I need help with that, something's really wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with you. Nothing. You just you just don't know yet. So the answer to your question is perspective. If you don't know, you're in great company. It's really okay if you don't know. Here's my tough love though. There's a little bit of tough love. The tough love is this. If you don't know and you've never learned, well, it is your responsibility to go learn. So there's the tough love. If you don't know what to do, it's okay. But if you don't take action, well, that's on you. Yeah.
What would you say to the female listeners that might be with someone who has not done the learning, is not going into the dojo, and they want to be a catalyst for that? How do how do the women support their men in this journey?
Gosh, that is such a good question. Our wives have such tremendous influence on us. I'm not even kidding. If my wife, like, I could have friends of mine, my leadership team, like look at me and be like, hey man, we believe in you. You got this. I'd be like, okay, cool. Thanks. But if my wife looks at me in the eyes and she's like, I believe in you and I know you can do this. I don't know how, I am not sure what secret ingredient God gave women as far as like that wind in our sails, the oxygen in our lungs. Like a good woman in a man's life, that man can do anything. I'm not kidding. Like we can go and conquer anything when we hear things like that. So I think a lot of women though, that while well intended, right? I mean, I think one of the worst complaints, or one of the most common complaints that we hear from women about their man is like, every time I talk to him, he tries to give me advice. Like, he doesn't even listen. And that the advice comes from well-intended, we love you and we just want to give you advice. It's not the right move for us. I'm telling you, like, guys, if you're doing that, don't do it. But from a woman's perspective, to answer your question, a lot of women are like, hey, you should join this men's group over here. They talk a lot about marriage. They talk a lot about fatherhood. You should join that. Like, it's really good stuff. The way a guy receives that is great. So you think I'm broken. Awesome. I have problems. Okay. Now I really don't want to do it, because instead, if a woman's like, oh my gosh, like, I just heard about this thing called the dad edge, where these guys are really excited about being a dad. And I know how excited you are to be a dad. Like, these dudes, I don't know what's coming to my mind, but I'm thinking these dudes are your people, right? So like, if a woman can inspire a man versus if you run it through a filter of like, could this come across as nagging? The man's going to shut down. Same thing happens when you guys come and talk to us and we're like, you should do this and you should do that. Have you thought about doing this? And you're like, yeah, idiot, I have. I'm just actually having this conversation with you because I want to connect with you because you're my man. I don't need the advice. And by the way, when you give me advice, it shows me that you really don't trust me and you think I'm an idiot. So please just talk to me. So like, that's, if you run that through a filter of like, does he think I'm nagging him or am I inspiring him? If it's the latter, you're on the right page. If it's the one before that, he's going to shut down.
So good. I'm like tearing up just listening to that. So where are most men in their journey when they're coming to you? Like what stage of life are they usually in? And where do you feel like this work is the most impactful?
Such a good question. So I like to use this, for psychological brain purposes, because I think it's like, it's right in line. So like the amygdala, right? The amygdala is fight, flight, or freeze. That's our like hunting, there's a polar bear around the corner and, you're ready for the attack. You're either going to run, you're going to fight it, or you're going to freeze and it's going to maul you, right? So that's our survival mechanism. Like, that's the one that, like, when we're in survival mode, that keeps us alive, because you don't want to turn the corner and be like, oh, there's a polar bear. Hi. Oh, and now I'm lunch, right? So, and then there's the prefrontal cortex, which is more logical, right? And that's a good spot to be in. So unfortunately, I will say this. Do you get your oil changed very often? Asking you.
Changed. I'm not changing it, but it gets
Right, you're not.
Yeah.
I don't even change my go up there, right? But how often do you get it changed?
I don't know. It magically happens. It's one of those things that I don't have to think about.
Okay, well, so usually it's like every 5,000 miles. Let me ask you this. If you're going to where I'm going to right after this podcast, which I love this place more than anything, it's called the dentist. I love it. I'm almost 50 years old. I've never had a cavity, so that's good news, but I still hate it. But I'm still going to go, because I don't want to turn around like 5 years from now and be like, oh, when was the last time you were here? It was 5 years ago. Yeah, we got to pull like 8 teeth, man. Like, come on. So like, I'm going to the dentist. I don't want to go to the dentist, but my mouth looks pretty good because I've been to the dentist twice a year, every year for the past 49 years. So what I tell men is, please don't wait until your engine light comes on. Don't wait until your mouth is decaying and you've got cavities and gingivitis everywhere. Go get routine preventative care, which means if you're in a good spot with your marriage, if you're like, man, things are pretty good. If things are pretty good with parenting and you're like, it's not great, but it's okay. Maybe the same thing at work or fitness. If your life is in a quote unquote good spot, I'm not talking about great spot, but good spot, that is a great time to take action, because going from good to great is a lot easier from going from crisis to good. Because when you are in fight or flight and you're like, oh my God, my wife just literally turned over and told me, I don't love you anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore. You disgust me. You repulse me. I'm done. That's when a guy suddenly is like, I think it's time to get help. That, while we can still help you there, and we've helped many men in that spot, it's a way lighter lift than if you're in a good spot. So like, yeah, we can actually help you in crisis. It's no problem. But your work will be lighter if we get to you when you're in the good spot.
What does it take spot though?
I'm so sorry. It kind of broke up, so I didn't hear that.
What does it take to get to a good spot?
That's such a good question. So you got to get a mentor. And I know that sounds self-serving. You got to get around the right people. Number one. What I'll tell you is, I heard this term a long time ago. Men surround themselves with rusty friendships that are rusty, right? They're not sharp. They're not on point. They're usually quite shallow. I always joke about this, but usually every friendship that a man has, any question that's thrown his way can be answered with good, fine, crazy, busy, boring. It's one word. How's work? Oh, it's good, man. It's really, really busy, but it's good. How's Jessica? Oh, she's good, man. She's really, really good. Everything's fine. Like we're doing good. How are the boys? Man, the boys, they're doing good. They're busy. Like we got this sport going on. They got that sport going on. Yeah. Yeah. How are you? How's work? Good. It is what I'll tell you is like, you do this work long enough, conversations like that are boring and annoying. Like, okay, I'm done with these. Like, so how do you get involved with men who have this a shared vision like you do? So like there's a lot of guys out there, and I would say the majority of them, where they would love to be in a room where they could talk about their marriage and their communication and their intimacy with their wives, how they can be better about it, what they can learn from other men. There are other men who are just like, man, I'm so curious. Like, I have a teenage daughter. I don't have a teen. I'm just speaking for somebody, but like, I have a teenage daughter right now. I don't know how to connect with her. I don't know how to talk to her. Like, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm so frustrated. Like, does anybody else have a teenage daughter and you've cracked that code? Right. So, like, or like, man, like, I didn't have a dad growing up and now I'm raising young men. I don't know how to do that. Like, what do I teach these kids? Like, men are really keen to be in rooms like that because they want to learn from each other. They just want to be given the permission of like, hey, man, this is the cool environment. This is the cool place to have those conversations. Because when you're sitting at little Johnny's baseball game and you're in the bleachers and you look at, Mike, who's sitting next to you, you've seen 4 times, like, hey, man, how's work? Oh, it's good. Hey, so just out of curiosity, like, how do you and your wife communicate intimately? Like the guy's going to look at you and be like, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Like this, like, right. So you got to have the right people. You got to have the right environment. You got to be given permission. So to answer your question, that is the easiest thing that a man can do. Go find a room, virtual room, physical room, or wherever, where these conversations are not only cool, but they're welcome.
Good. So what do you think, like, at Empower Journey, we talk a lot about like circle of five and finding, it's exactly what you just talked about, right? What do you think, other than being able to have conversations about these types of topics, what else should be on that checklist when people are looking for their circle of five, their village, the men that they should surround themselves with? What else is on that list?
So I think you have to really understand what is it that you want. So like I love that circle of five. I think it was Jim Rohn said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I'm a huge believer in that too. As soon as I think it sounds really like conceited when I say this, and maybe this is why it hasn't happened very often. But like whenever I think I'm the smartest person in the room, I need to find a new room. Like I said, that hasn't happened very often. But anytime I ever feel that way, I'm like, okay, I need to go find other people. So like I'll give you an example of this. So obviously I run and facilitate and lead, the Data Edge community, both the boardroom and the Alliance podcast. So I pour out a lot, right? So I'm always helping the people that are just behind me, right? What I need in my life is I actually need 3 people. I need the people that I'm teaching, right? Because that reinforces what I learn. I also need people I can do life with, right? The people who are like my equals that kind of know the knowledge that I do, but also can hold me to the fire of where I'm at. And then I need one more person, and that's the person ahead of me, the one who's teaching me. Every single year, no matter what, I always hire a coach, no matter what. And I do that and it's no less than 90 days. I do that because it's my job to learn and be in that student seat at all time. If I am not doing my own continuing education, I am missing the boat. So I think if men have those 3 men in their life, but also what type of men, man, you got to really figure that one out. So me, for instance, I seem to thrive in communities where men have an element of faith, where they have an element of desire and motivation to create the best freaking marriage with their wives on the planet. Cause not all guys are wired that way. Some guys just want to sit and complain about my old lady's doing this and my old lady's doing that. And I'll tell you, like, just some tough love here. If you're in conversations like that, I don't care how bad your home situation is, that's not going to help your situation. All that's doing is actually compounding the problem because all you're doing is focusing on everything that's wrong and complaining about it. So get in rooms where there's strategy and there's answers, not complaining, right?
Yeah.
So that's another one too, is just making sure that desire and that vision is there. Same thing with kids, same thing with mindset. Like, not all minds are created equal and not all visions are created equal. So find the men that you have alignment with.
So it's interesting because I think one of the things that me and my husband struggle with is finding the couples that we can do life with, but then also having a desire to blend that with what you have described as the next level, right? The mentors, the people that are ahead of us. And I think sometimes that holds us back from relationships because it's almost like we've set the bar too high. We're asking too much of our circle. What advice do you have specifically for me and my husband about like, how do you find that balance of like finding the right people to spend time with, to do life with, but also this idea of like circle of five, the people you hang out with should be who you want to be. How do you find that balance in those two ideas?
That is such a good question. How I go about this. So I'll give you an example, and I'll answer this first from a man's point of view, like with friendships with other men, right? So I've heard this before, but a man should have three different types of friendships in his life, and a man to represent each one of those. One is the vault. Like, this is where I can come and tell you my deepest, darkest things, like my shadow stuff, like the shit that I don't even like to say out loud myself, right? I need somebody to just say things to that have zero filter, right? My wife and I call them first draft emotions, or shitty first draft emotions, right? Or just anything. Like, everybody has a history. Everybody's got skeletons in the closet, right? And keeping those to yourself, and it can kind of eat you away. So like, if you've got things that you got to unpack, you got to have that vault friend that they don't say anything to anybody and they're the trusted advisor, right? The other one is the ride or die. This is the guy that it doesn't matter if it's been 10 years or 10 days. You can pick up the phone and you pick up exactly where you left off. Like, I've had a friendship like that. His name's Matt. We've been friends since I was 14 years old. Doesn't matter when I call him. We pick right up where we left off. I tell him everything. He knows everything about me. I know everything about him. He will be my best friend till the day I die. I have no doubt. So that ride or die friend. And then the third one is your 3 a.m. friend. This is the guy that, God forbid, something horrible has happened and you call him. And the way you qualify that friend is he doesn't ask any questions. You tell him what's going on and his response is, I'll be right there, period. Right. So those are the three types of men that I think men need to have. But going back to this thing with couples, right? So I've had a lot of people ask me like, man, you're into self-development and growth mindset and all this, like all your friends have to be that way. No, they're not. I still hang out every now and again with my college friends who all they want to talk about is the college parties we went to. They still want to drink a shit ton of beer when we go out, and they talk nothing more than, you know, the girl that they slept with, back in college, and we cut up about it. And it's absolute meaningless conversation, but it's lighthearted and it's banter. Like, those relationships are fine, but those are not the relationships I'm going to go to and I'll be like, hey man, like, you know, I'm really having some issues like connecting with Mason. Like, he's so busy with his girlfriend. He's so busy with his friends. Like, I'm trying to crack this code with him and like really spend time with him, but I cannot figure it out. Like, those guys be like, have another beer. Like, and that's fine. Those are what those friendships are for. But then to answer your question, I think it's fine to have friends like that are couples, right? These are our fun friends. These are our crazy friends. We got those too. But then you also have these other friends over here, and maybe you find them in your church, or maybe you find them just in community, but you know them when you're around them. They're not only great people to hang out with, but these are people that this is another couple that could help us and we can help them. We can challenge them. They can challenge us. They can call us forward. We can call them forward. Right. But I think that is like a rare group, right? You really got to seek those people out, and you almost have to have a conversation of like, hey, being married is tough, and having a good couple in your corner is just as important sometimes as having good friends in your corner. So what would it look like if we were just this married couple for each other? Like, when things go wrong or we needed some advisement, we come to you guys, you come to us. How about that? And I'll tell you, you'd be shocked. I mean, you probably wouldn't be, but people are like, yes, yes, please. That would be awesome. Right. So people want it, but they're usually not being like, hey, how about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like formalizing it almost.
Formalizing it. Yeah.
It's like the what do they call that? Like, oh, if the person that you're going to marry, if you're not married by the time you're 40, what are they?
I know
Right?
what you're talking about. I can't remember what it is, but yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Well, let's shift a little bit because we've been talking a lot about marriage and couples. I want to spend some time talking about fatherhood and what that means to you. And I know that you have talked in the past about like the myth of the perfect dad. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the antidote to that is? Because I think it can be so dangerous getting into this like mindset of like, I have to be a dad and this is what it looks like. How do you address that?
So first of all, I want to talk about just what we see in the media. The Homer Simpsons, the Peter Griffins, Peter Griffin, he has no clue what's going on, Lois, right? That's my best one right there. It's terrible. But anyway, but like, Homer Simpson, who's the other guy? Ted, Al Bundy, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of these media outlets make men look like we're just complete aloofs. Like we're just total idiots. Like the kids actually know more about what's happening in the family than the dad does. That saddens me quite a bit. And the interesting thing is this, I think that there's a lot of guys out there that have embraced that as that's okay to live that way because it's funny or society accepts it. And that's not the case. I would challenge that all day long. No woman wants to be married to Peter Griffin. No woman wants to be married to Homer Simpson. No woman wants to be married to Al Bundy. Like they might be funny, but it ain't attractive. It's not. You want to find someone who's attractive? Look at somebody like Spencer Dutton from 1923. Like that guy's character, what is he? He listens to his wife. He talks to her. He protects her. He's always got his shit together no matter what, right? And if he doesn't, he asks for help. I don't have this figured out. Let's go figure it out. I mean, when a man can lead like that, and I'm not talking about being domineering, overpowering, toxic masculinity, like that guy embraces, I think, all the fantastic qualities of what it means to be a good man. If you really look at his character, right? Loves his wife more than anything, would do anything for her, right? A good dad would die for his son, would also live for his son. That one's important. Do anything for his family to protect them, right? And he's always calm, no matter what chaos is going on. You watch those 2 seasons of 1923. That is a man who can stay calm and resolve in chaos. That is what's appealing for a woman. That's what's appealing for, I think, for kids as well, because they want to look up at that calm, that resolve, that masculine man like that. But I think when it comes to fatherhood, that is the type of, I think, qualities that you can embrace. The other thing as well is that it's there's so many lessons that I think a dad can teach. And one of them is, I think, being a lifelong learner. I think a lot of guys shoulder the responsibility of like, if my kid comes and asks me something, I better have the answer or I'm just going to make it up so he doesn't think I doesn't know. I think what's incredible is teaching your kids to be a lifelong learner. And this is what I've always told my kids. I'm like, listen, I wasn't raised with a dad. There's very little I can teach you to fix. I can't teach you how to hunt. There's some things I can teach you about life, but not all. But here's what I'll tell you. If you ever come and ask me a question and I don't know the answer, or if you come and ask me to do something with you and I don't know how to do it, what I promise you is we will go learn it together. So like example of this is my 17-year-old was like, I've never been hunting. And my son was like, I really want to go hunting. I was like, okay, I've never done it. Let's go on a guided hunt and learn how to do it. And we did. I could tear up talking about it. So it's like, guys don't have to have all the answers. Part of being a good dad is showing your kids you're never too old to learn. And what more fun and beauty can you find in fatherhood than going out and learning with your kids, right? So being that lifelong learner, I think it's also important too, just going back to marriage. I don't necessarily think that we should separate all the time what being a good dad and being a good husband is all about, because I think part of being a good dad is also showing your kids what a good husband is. So if you have a daughter, right, you have a tremendous opportunity. Like ask any guy, like when your daughter starts dating, what are you afraid of? And they'll be like, oh my God, all these dumbasses that come around, right? It'd be like, okay, well, great. Here's your opportunity. You get to set the bar so high for all these jokers that come in. So like when you take your daughter out on a date, and you open the door for her, you pull out her chair, you ask her questions, you're curious about her life, and she's doing the majority of the talking and you're listening and you're hanging on every word. You are setting the bar so high for the idiot that comes knocking at your door or text you. This one's great. Text you from the driveway. I always tell my boys, I was like, God forbid, boy, you text a girl from the driveway that you're waiting for her. You don't get out of that car, knock on that door. You shake that dad's hand, that mom's hand, look them in the eye. Thank you, sir. It's so nice to meet you, sir. What time can I have your daughter home for you? I promise she'll be safe with me. If you don't do those things, your ass is mine. So I think, teaching these kids, like we can set the bar so high, because like the girl goes out on a date with a guy and he's not doing those things. She's gonna be like, one date for me. After this, peace. Same thing with a boy. I mean, I take it as my responsibility, and this is one of the things we teach is like, hey, you can teach your son how to love a woman well, like with masculine power, with respect, with empathy, with compassion, with good listening skills, with conflict resolution, all these things. And my wife also takes on the responsibility of like, I'm going to show these boys what it looks like to love a man well, because when these jokers come knocking on our door and they want to hang out with our kids, well, I've already set the bar really, really high for what you should tolerate from a woman. If a woman speaks to you poorly, if she treats you poorly, if she's doing all these things poorly, well, we don't do that at home. You shouldn't put up with it either. So I think that's part of being a good parent as well, as showing some of those roles.
Have your kids started dating? Are they at the age where they're...
Yeah, I have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old. They both have girlfriends. My 17-year-old's been with the same girl for 3.5 years. And my 19-year-old is about ready to celebrate a year with his girlfriend. Yeah.
Can't even imagine. My kids are much younger. Can't imagine that stage. It's hard to fathom.
I'll tell you, it's really fascinating. Like doing this work, it's been such a tremendous education. So I'll give you an example. I was in the car for 2.5 hours with my oldest son. We went to an event last week, and we had a conversation around how to lovingly communicate boundaries to a woman, because he needs to do that. And there's good reason for that I won't get into, but he needs to have a conversation that's lovingly, that doesn't end up in absolute disaster and conflict. Like you can actually communicate those things and do it in a loving way and actually have a great outcome. You don't have to fight about it. But I actually had that conversation with him, coached him through that, what the whole psychology is behind everything, and what he should probably be saying, and what she probably needs to hear, in a good way, not a bad way.
Tell me about daily habits that you think are important, either as a father or as a husband, but if you want to have those strong, healthy relationships. What are some of the most important habits that you would recommend?
Whew, man, there's so many. So I think I heard another podcast guest say this, and I really, really leaned into it. And that is every single day I start in the lobby of the building of my penthouse that I live in, way up there, right? So every morning I wake up, I'm in the lobby. I'm not in the penthouse. I got to work my way up there, right? I don't just get to walk in the door. I have to do things to pull those levers to get up into what we call the penthouse of our lives as men. The penthouse of our lives as men is our children love us, and they want, not have to, but they want to be around us. Like when your kid says, I just love being at home, I don't know if there's a greater compliment than that, because basically what they're saying is, I love being here with my family. This is a safe, warm, comfortable place for me to be. And the rest of the outside world's chaotic, but not in here. And for a lot of kids and a lot of families, it's the opposite. The under the roof is the chaos, and the outside world is where they go get reprieve. But in our house, in order to be in the penthouse of our lives, the levers have to be pulled that there is psychological safety, comfort, warmth, love, protection under this roof. And the outside elements are the ones that could hurt you, but not the ones in here. So I'll explain that in a second. But I think it really starts with a man, and he's got to be his best self. And what a lot of men will do is, and this comes from, I think, such a selfless place, but what a man will usually do is he will figuratively throw himself on the sword of sacrifice, decimate himself, his mental health, his physical health. Like most guys, when they get married, start having kids, their physical health goes out the window. And it usually goes in the opposite direction, where they get quite unhealthy. Usually with an unhealthy body comes unhealthy emotions and unhealthy mind. I'm not talking about disastrous, but it certainly doesn't help. So a man, I think one of the most important things a man can do is take care of himself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You have to do those things. So one of the things that I have to do every day, I train every day something. I'm doing something active, exercise, sauna, whatever it is I'm doing something for my physical body, because that is going to be a domino that falls into my mental and emotional health. And I'm going to be better for my family because of it. Another thing that I do is, I mean, luckily it's my job, my mission, but I get to be in rooms all day long with people that we rise tides together. Like, it's a great spot to work in, because like once I get out of here and into my family, I'm like super motivated usually to be around my family. Right. But I think men having other like-minded men in their lives, they feed that's a non-negotiable in my mind. Like, you need that in order to be better for everyone else. So having those feed that man, then that man can also, here's the other thing too. A father and a husband has to learn connection and communication skills, because I don't need to tell you this, but we ain't so good at it left to our own vices. Like, we're really quite poor at it. Like, I'll be really honest. You want to hear a story of how crappy of a listener I was and crappy of a husband I was? So this was like 15 years ago. I used to do the typical thing where when my wife would come and talk to me, I would immediately be like, well, you should go talk to your friend about that. And you should go do this. You should go talk to your boss about that situation. That ain't right. Like, you should go fix it this way. Right. And then she would look at me and be like, you're not even listening to me. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? I was just like, I just listened to every word you were saying. Like, I just told you how I think we should go about this. Yeah, but you're not listening. I'm like, so then I would get frustrated, and I didn't understand that my wife never wanted my solutions. She wanted my connection. She wanted my listening ear. She wanted my heart, right? I didn't get that. I actually told my wife this one time, and I saw this look of absolute devastation. And if I could take it back, I can't even believe, like, I would go back in time in the freaking DeLorean, go 88 miles an hour and kick my own ass for saying this. And that is, I literally said to my wife, if you don't want my advice, don't talk to me. Like, I don't even know what the hell was wrong with me. Like, if a client told me that he said that to his wife, I'd be like, okay, do you want a nail in your coffin? Because that's what you just did. Right. So being a good listener, being empathetic, you know, knowing how to validate your wife's feelings. If you don't understand what the word validation means, oh my gosh, you are literally missing one of the single most powerful communication connection skills on the planet. And it's so easy and it's so effective for both people, both the listener and the person who's speaking. So learning those communication connection skills, that's essential. Like, don't miss the boat on that. Those are just a few though.
What about you? You touched on it briefly, but psychological safety in the home, especially for your kids. What are the habits that cultivate psychological?
So basically, when your kid comes and talks to you and they tell you something that they did wrong and it takes you by surprise, just blast them, yell at them, and then ground them for it. Perfect idea.
That works every time.
It does. They will be so motivated to come up and tell you the very next thing. It might even happen right after that. I'm kidding, obviously. So what is psychological safety? So psychological safety is, I guarantee, I've only known you for 50 minutes, but I guarantee many people over the years have probably said, I don't know what it is about you, but I feel like I can tell you anything. And no, seriously, like, you have, like, so I can only see you pretty much from the neck up, but the physical features in your face, like, I never, no matter what I was saying, like, I never saw like that look of like, right. There was nothing more than like, you just have this genuine look of curiosity. Like, you're really involved in the conversation, which makes the other person feel very safe to talk more. Right. So your body language says, talk to me. Like, that's what it says, which is really, really cool. Your voice tone, like, you can tell just by the way you pause with questions that your questions are very genuine, right? Like, you really want to know. And that makes the other person like, wow, this person is like really asking me some good, deep questions, right? Which is a pattern interrupt for most people with conversation. The other thing as well is like, there hasn't been like these massive fluctuations of like intense, like octaves of voices, like what or anything like that. But psychological safety is exactly that. It's like, I don't know what it is about you, but I feel like I can tell you anything. That is what you want your kids to say. The way to do that though, is to be genuinely curious about whatever it is. So like, if you want to establish psychological safety, you got to get reps in. But basically it looks like this. son, no matter what you tell me, it's not going to make me love you any less. You're not going to be blasted for it. Like, so we have a saying in this house, and that is, your honesty and ownership is celebrated and never punished. Your honesty and ownership is celebrated and never punished. So if my kids need to be like, oh my God, I got an F on that test. What a kid is saying to themselves is, number one, my dad can never find out, or I need to go tell my dad. That's the decision they're making. And if we've had a history of like, they're going to come home and tell us they got an F on the test, we're like, what do you mean you got an F on the test? I knew you weren't studying for that. What the hell, man? Like, you knew how important this test was. Why did you flake it? What is wrong with you? Well, that kid just made a mental note of like, okay, well, dad is not the guy I talk to. But if your kid comes to you and says, hey, dad, I need to tell you something. First of all, if you get something even remotely to that, brace yourself internally, because something big might be coming, because you need to have resolve and response, not reaction, because this is a tremendous opportunity. When your kid is like, yeah, I got to tell you something. I was like, well, you might say something along lines of like, hey, I get the feeling, whatever it is you're about to tell me is something big. And maybe you're a little scared. And I just want to remind you, don't be scared. I'm not going to get angry. Depending on how severe it is, we might have a conversation of what we need to do about it, but I'm not going to be angry. Okay. I will guide you through this. We'll talk through it. So what's up? You just rolled out the red carpet of safety for your kid doing that. Then the proof in the pudding comes when they lay it on you. And now and here's what I'll tell you. If you ever need some space in like, holy crap, what am I going to say that? Just be like, tell me more about that. That will buy you some time before you react. And then your kid will keep talking and give you more detail anyway, which is great. So I'd be like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. What happened? What happened next? And inside you might be like, right, but that's fine. Like, just let them keep talking, right? Then you can just get really curious. And the cool thing about psychological safety is you don't have to lecture. You can simply say something like, man, okay, well, you know what? I remember being younger. I remember being in very similar situations like that. And I remember what I was thinking. And I know what I was thinking, but tell me, what was going through your mind? So what I just did there with psychological safety is I just told my kid, you're not alone. Your old man did this shit too. Okay. And so much so that when you tell me what you were thinking, I'm going to compare my own notes, be like, dude, oh my God. Yeah. You know what I was thinking too is that, right? So then suddenly there's relatability, right? But your kid is still looking for guidance, and most kids are realistic too. They're like, okay, if I say this, I know I'm probably not going to get off the hook without a consequence. But here's the rule in our house. There's no added consequences that we're going to put on you. So like, for instance, my son, I think it was last semester, had 4 Fs in 6 of his classes. And it was because he had COVID and he was out for like 7 days. He felt way behind. And he told me about this. And I wanted to get pissed because I was like, dude, you need to keep up with your work, right? But instead asked him how he got in that situation, told me all about it. And I basically was like, okay, I'm not going to ground you for this. Okay. Like, but what do we do about it? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, let's create a plan. What would you do about it? Knowing yourself. And he came up with this incredible plan. He's like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get up 30 minutes before school. And I'm going to stay up 30 minutes later and work on schoolwork. But I think I'll get the most work done is if I don't take they give them an hour for lunch at their high school. I'm going to take my 1 hour lunch. I'm going to go in the auditorium and I'm just going to grind all this work, not be around my friends until I get it done. And after I'm done, then I'll be good. It took him 3 days to do all that. But the cool thing was he came up with his own plan. I didn't have to give him any consequences, and he still had consequences. Get up an hour early, go to bed an hour later, and sacrifice community, friendship time, and lunchtime with his friends to go get work done alone in the auditorium. I didn't have to punish him. He did that himself. And by the way, he created that plan, which is another addition to psychological safety. If I were to blast him and be like, this is what you're going to do, I don't have to do that. All I have to do is ask him and he can come up with the plan. Then he's going to be more likely to execute it and feel really good about it. And here's how it ended. And I'll end here. After 3 days, he was just like, he came walking through the door and it was like this. And he came walking and I was like, what's up, man? What do you got? And he's like, guess what? And I was like, I think I know what you're going to tell me, but tell me, what do you got? And he's like, took me 3 days. I'm all caught up. I have no F's. All my grades are C or better. I did it. And I'm like, look at that. Look at that. I was like, dude, first of all, you were truthful, right? You came up with your own plan. You executed the plan, and you just needed a soundboard to figure it out. That's psychological safety.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Larry. That gives me so much hope in my own parenting and really the community that you're working with. So I love that. Thank you. It has been so incredible chatting with you today. I feel like we could talk for 10 more hours about everything and still have more to talk about. Can you just share really quickly how people can get a hold of you if they're curious about the work that you're doing, if they want to learn more? What's the best way?
Best way is just go to thedataedge.com. That all of our resources are there. Mastermind applications are there. If you're not familiar with the podcast, I always point to people there. Like I've got over 1,400 episodes, I think, to date. So I have enough to keep you busy for probably 10 years. But here's my challenge, though. The podcast is great, but podcast is information in, very little implementation and execution. And what I'll tell you is there's no long-term accountability. It's kind of like, oh, that's a great idea. I think I'll do that for a minute. And then we do it for a minute and then it's gone. So long-term sustained change, in my personal opinion, while it sounds self-serving, get in community. I don't care if it's Dad Edge or another community. Get around the right men in your life that's going to help you move the needle, and you'll help them move theirs as well.
Love that. And we'll drop all the links into the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your so much gold with us today. I can't wait for this episode to go live. Appreciate you, Larry.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Mpowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them, because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.